Hello, everyone. Welcome to the technical session 4B. So, as we're from different time zones, I would like to greet you all. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and good evening. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to the 5th International Conference on Smart Trends in Computing and Communication through Zoom on behalf of SmartCom 2021 and Global Knowledge Research Foundation. As every one of us is passing through unseen circumstances due to COVID-19, we wish everyone and their families a protected time, and we all will together pass this soon. We are all thankful to all present on this platform to join us digitally for the conference in these unpredictable times and make this conference more fruitful in terms of technical knowledge, and hope you will enjoy the last day of the knowledgeful and interactive sessions. And further, I would like to introduce you all to the chair of the session, Dr. Parikshit Mahale. Welcome, sir. Okay. Dr. Parikshit is the senior member of IEEE. Also, he is a professor and head of Department of Computer Engineering in Srimati Kashiben Nawale College of Engineering, Pune. He has overall 19 years of experience. He has authored 15 books. His main interest is into teaching, learning, and research with the concepts and technologies. So thank you, Dr. Parikshit, for being the chair of this session.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Good morning to all of you. I hope I am audible.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Thank you so much, and very good afternoon, very good morning to all of you, one and all.
Okay, so before heading ahead, I would like to request you all to be muted while the presentation is going on. Presenter will have 12 minutes, and on 10th minute, I will raise a gentle reminder. So now I will start with papers. We have first presenter, Akash Babu NS. His paper is about context-aware placement applications of Industry 4.0 using connected dominating set in fog computing. Akash, you can start your presentation.
Am I audible?
Yes.
By the way, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. For it's a pandemic situation, we are trying to be here for attend. This is my first conference to attend from India, and I would like to introduce myself. My name is Akash Babu. I'm pursuing BTech Engineering in Chennai, India. To start my presentation.
Hello, Akash.
Oh, one second. I am sharing my screen. It's my screen is visible.
Yes, screen is visible, not visible yet. You share your screen.
Share to my screen.
Maybe you
your bandwidth is not proper, so you are not able to share your screen. Your video is also paused. So first of all, you can turn off your video, and after that you can go ahead with the same. Akash, are you there? Fine. Akash is collapsed due to the internet, I think so. So Neelam, we can go ahead with the next presentation.
Yes, sir. Sure.
We can consider the Akash presentation in the last.
Yes, sir, sure. Next, we have Ms. Anita Ramchandran for her paper about performance analysis of machine learning algorithms for sleep apnea detection using ECG. Ma'am, you can start now. Hello, ma'am, Ms. Anita.
I think she is muted.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes.
Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. Shall I share my screen and start the presentation?
Yeah, please.
You can see the screen now, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
So good afternoon again, and thank you for this opportunity of presenting our paper in the fifth SmartCom conference. Our paper is on performance analysis of machine learning algorithms for sleep apnea detection using ECG. And this paper was authored by Atul and Professor Anupama along with me. And we are from BITS Pilani. I'll take about 10 minutes. The first point is on the need for sleep apnea detection. Sleep apnea is a disorder, sleeping disorder, where a sleeping person's breathing gets affected, either because there is an issue with the respiratory tract, or because the brain forgets to send signals to breathe. So whichever the causes, there is a disturbance to the breathing pattern of a person who's sleeping. And such prolonged disturbances can lead to what are called apneic events or sleep apnea. Sleep apnea over a long duration, like over months or years, may cause long-term health problems like high blood pressure, diabetes, other cardiac issues, and also emotional issues like depression and fatigue during the day, insomnia, and so on. So there is a need to detect and treat sleep apnea. The gold standard for detection of sleep apnea is through the polysomnography test, wherein a subject has to go to a sleep center, a sleep lab, and spend a night or two there, sleeping on their test bed with a lot of electrodes and sensors attached to their body. And it measures various parameters like ECG, EEG, heart rate, SpO2, and multiple other parameters, body position, and so on. This test, though it's a gold standard for detection of sleep apnea, this test is little expensive on both the infrastructure side as well as the personal side. The human power, the manpower required to conduct and annotate the tests, and therefore it's not very available to the common man. Typically, the queues to do this kind of test will also be high. It will be long. So there is a need for automating the detection of sleep apnea, or doing this on a little more affordable and reachable basis. What we're working on is a geriatric healthcare system using wearable systems, and our study, this study and other related studies that we're doing, is on the capabilities that can be built into such kind of a system. So if there is a wearable system, the present study has got to do with its with ability to detect sleep apnea using various parameters. Now, in general, the biophysical parameters that influence the sleep apnea detection include heart rate, pulse oximetry readings, ECG, and EEG. This also leads to, so these are the biophysical parameters, and they're used either as single markers or they're used in combination. So for example, there is prior research that shows heart rate and SpO2 used together to detect apneic events, or ECG and SpO2 used together to detect apneic events, and so on. So it can be single biomarkers that are used for detection of apnea, or it could be a combination like a sensor fusion or a fusion-based approach in general towards detection. In addition to these, there is also derived parameters or derivative parameters from these. For example, from the data that ECG signals give, we can derive parameters like heart rate variability, which is the variation in heart rate. The EDR, which is the ECG-derived respiration, which has got to do with the respiratory activity from ECG. There is cardiopulmonary coupling, which is indicative of whether the sleep of a person is stable or unstable, and there is a high frequency coupling versus low frequency coupling. And there's also a ballistocardiography or BCG, which is got to do with the position of a body, the subject's body, or its displacement because of the ejection of blood by the heart. So all these parameters can be derived from ECG, and there is research that shows the application of these derivative parameters also towards detection of apneic events. The objective of this particular study that we've done is to study the performance of machine learning classifiers in the detection of sleep apnea or apneic events using a public data set with ECG readings. And the data set that we've used is the apnea ECG data set from the PhysioNet database from MIT. What we did was a bunch of pre-processing activities followed by feature extraction, then feature selection, and training the classifiers, including the hyperparameter tuning. These 4 steps comprise the methodology. For pre-processing, we applied a windowing technique where we applied 5 minutes overlapping windows on the ECG readings. Each window comprised of data from a 1-minute segment, along with the preceding 2-minute segment and the succeeding 2-minute segments. So that became a 5-minute window size, and it overlapped by 2 minutes each. Every window overlapped with the previous one by 2 minutes each. For each of the window, we derived the RR interval, and that was the main feature that was extracted. And from the RR interval, a bunch of time domain features and frequency domain features were extracted. So time domain features included the mean, median, the RMS and standard deviation, etc. of the RR intervals. And the frequency domain features included the variance in heart rate variability in the very low frequency and the high frequency spectrum. That's because the HRV spectrum has a high frequency component and a low frequency component. The high frequency component indicates parasympathetic activity, and the low frequency component indicates sympathetic activity. So these are the 6 features that were derived from the RR intervals, and the 12 features were there. We trained the classifiers, 5 classifiers: KNN, ANN, random forest, XGBoost, and SVM. And subsequently, we also did feature selection using chi-square test. So we did a correlation analysis using chi-square test and shortlisted the 10 most correlating features from the 12 and did the classifier training again to see whether this reduction in features resulted in any change in the performance of the machine learning algorithms. So this was broadly the methodology, and the results were that this shows the precision, recall, and accuracy of the various classifiers that we obtained. And in general, what we notice is that from the accuracy perspective, the random forest, KNN, and XGBoost, they were performing better. And both also precision and recall, these 3 algorithms classifiers performed better than the other 3 classifiers. And in terms of interpretation of the results, what we think is that the naive Bayes is giving us a little low accuracy, probably because there is an inherent assumption of feature independence in naive Bayes, which may not be true in the scenario. The random forest and XGBoost classifiers worked well for this scenario, and in general for all the previous experimentations that we've done, random forest and XGBoost did give us good results, probably because they are ensemble classifiers, and the bagging and boosting techniques using multiple decision trees works to create a combined learner that is better than individual learners. That's the impression that we're getting from the way it's been behaving so far. KNN did well in the scenario. So one conclusion or observation that we have could be that KNN is a classifier that's working well here, maybe because algorithms based on proximity measures may be serving as good candidates for sleep apnea detection using ECG. The other observation in terms of feature selection is that when we reduce the features from 12 to 10, we did not really see any significant improvement. So we could as well use 10 features instead of 12 if it leads to some reduction in the computational complexity of the algorithms running on the CPUs. So these were our observations from the experimentations done, and how it fits in the overall scenario is our system that you're working on is a wearable system, and ECG, though there is a single lead ECG, I'm not sure about the accuracy that single lead ECG would give. An ECG device to be giving relatively good accuracy, it needs to have more leads. So the reason why we did the study for ECG is we wanted to compare this with the accuracies or the performance results that a study using SpO2 would give us, SpO2 or heart rate would give us, which are more conducive to be measured by wearable devices. Therefore, if the comparison between a study on ECG versus a study on SpO2 and heart rate is not giving us any particular advantage over ECG, then it gives us more justification to be using SpO2 and heart rate on the wearable device for sleep apnea detection. So this is the premise under which the study was done. So the next step is to compare this with a study on SpO2 and heart rate, and see how ECG performs, or how the results from ECG based sleep apnea detection is comparable with that based on a detection of sleep apnea using SpO2 and heart rate. And the observations from these will be feeding into the design of the geriatric healthcare system based on the wearable devices. It will also help us design the wearable device that we are working on. So this is the work that was done in the study that we've done. Any questions? I'll pause here for questions because this is what I had by way of presentation.
Sir, any questions? Hello.
Yes, Mahale sir, you are not audible actually. Yes, sir, do you have any issue with internet? You are not audible, sir, actually right now. Yet not, sir. No, sir. You can check with the audio. Right now, we are not audible.
While Professor Parikshit is coming on, Professor Neelam and Professor Aman, is this the right link that I should have joined? I thought I joined a link which was scheduled to be before mine, but this is the right place that I had to join, right?
Yes, yes, perfect. This, sir.
Okay.
Yes, Mahale sir, you are not audible actually right now. We can do one thing. You can leave the meeting and join the same. No worries. I think so. There is an issue with the internet.
Yes.
We'll wait for next 2 minutes. So if there any question with the Anita, after that we can go ahead with the next presentation.
Hello. Yes, Aman sir, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, sir. Perfect. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Madam, can you go to your title slide, please? Yeah, I hope you all can hear me.
Yes, yes, I can hear
Yeah.
you.
Yes.
Madam, I understood your entire work. I have two questions. So can you explain mathematically why naive Bayes was underperforming?
I don't. This is the observation that we have from this experiment and the previous work that we've done on sleep apnea, as well as the other aspect of this was fall detection.
Right.
Naive Bayes has an inherent assumption of feature independence. So I'm assuming that the naive Bayes is underperformed in here as well as in previous work, because the assumption of feature independence may not hold good in this scenario. For example, the various parameters derived from heart rate, derived from RR intervals, I doubt if they are if they're independent. So if the mean of the RR intervals is going down, then the standard deviation also would get affected. So
Yeah, that's fine. I hope you understood my question. My question is mathematically, you observed that naive Bayes is not performing well, right?
yes,
But
yes.
did you try to find out the reasons that when naive Bayes mathematically works on some data set, what is the reason for your underlying data set why it is underperforming?
No, we did not run any experiments. Do you do you have any pointers to that in terms of how we can do that kind of an analysis?
Yeah, because you can compare the characteristics of data set and you can compare it with existing results, so that you will have clear idea that what are the potential reasons behind some particular algorithm is underperforming, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Another point I would like to ask you, that in your complete work, what do you think that where this can be applied in the real world?
Like I said, the idea is to so this particular work is based on ECG, but in the larger scheme of things, we're working on a project which is to design a wearable system for geriatric healthcare. Now, the comparative analysis would come when we do a study of SpO2 and heart rate, which is more conducive to be measured by a wearable device than ECG. So if the study of SpO2 and heart rate in detecting apnea, if that result is comparable with that of ECG, then it gives us a justification that, okay, SpO2 and heart rate does have comparable results with ECG. Therefore, it can be included in the design of the wearable system.
Fine.
The wearable
Fine.
system, sorry.
Yeah, please continue.
So the wearable system, a wearable device rather, is meant to be deployed in elderly care homes, where each elderly subject would be given a wearable device. And there's a deployment scenario that we consider where the device would collect data at a periodic interval and send it to a central server, which will process the data and detect abnormalities like an apneic event or a series of apneic events, and give out some alerts if there is a need to raise an alarm.
Okay. Fine. So when you talk about this entire set of algorithms which are running on maybe structured data set or unstructured data set, what are your findings in your entire work? So your data set is structured, unstructured, or it's a mix of both?
The data set is structured. PhysioNet data set that we've used is a structured one. It has I think it has the records from 35 subjects, and the sleep data from 35 subjects, and each subject's data varies between 7 and 10 hours. And we've taken the ECG signal values, which has been annotated by domain experts. So the data set is labeled with apneic events. And that sampling is at 100 hertz.
Fine. Thank you. Over to Aman sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next presenter is Akash.
Am I audible now, ma'am?
Yes.
1 second, I will share.
Yes, sure.
it's now visible now.
Yes, perfect. Go ahead.
First of all, myself Akash, and I'm pursuing BTech in Hindustan University, Chennai, India. And this was my our article that context-aware placement industry 4.0 application with connected dominating cert using in fog computing. Saranman Samila and Akash Atakman and Bharat, we are the authors. We are writing this paper, and with brief of this project, the domain comes under a major area of fog computing, and the minor area we are implementing is the CDS network with the fog computing nodes. Like we are proposing an algorithm, we are proposing a method which places CDS like connected dominating set in a fog computing nodes, and the consequence thus we propose our policy of the device level context to fog computing with an edge resource data to minimize service delivery time at fog nodes from the data sent by the IoT devices, which also ensures the stream of data. It will ensure that a congested net, it will be working fine flowing towards the application, which will not be increasing the forced computing overhead in the for computing nodes. The introduction. This algorithm is to place Industry 4.0 applications to ensure time optimized service delivery time, and also data sending frequency with the devices to process by the application, which will be given by the fog gateways. And it's completely executes in the proximity of the data sources. Related work, we have fetched from four articles. It's a main article context our placement with the fog environment. It will provide a minimum service delivery time. By alternating this, we have implemented in a CDS connected domain set in this article to provide less service delivery time. And this work will provide cost-efficient deployment, which determines location of gateways, fog devices, and edge devices to minimize the total installation cost. And it is a final construct strategic CDS in mobile network. It will discovering the routes easily, and it will also show that terms of size in CDS will be smaller based on the path length. This article application placement algorithm. It consists of 3 layers. Where you can see from the cloud infrastructure, fog infrastructure, and IoT devices. The data sensors from the IoT devices will be carried through to the fog gateways, and fog gateways will further process through the fog computing nodes. Here we are implementing character dominating cert to reduce the size of the network, where it doesn't transmit the data to every device, every node, where it can be reduced to the smallest CDS network. It can be processed to and it will create a hub for every node, where it doesn't travel to each edge of the devices. So it will be reducing the cloud infrastructure, where it all be processing in the fog computing node itself. The benefits of the proper system, this reduce the idle time of the fog computing nodes during application execution. For each and every application request, the amount of data required by the fog computing nodes is calculated, and size of data and sensing frequency of data are the parameters responsible for determining the load for the corresponding application. That's the load that describes the request, application request. We have implemented this big 4 modules like a selection, transformation, and CDS application. The selection is like it's fetching the application request, Industry 4.0 application request from the IoT devices, and we are transforming by descending order of the loads, where the higher load will be processed first, and based on descending order, and once it is processed, it will be sent to the CDS network to reduce the size, and then place the application in that for computing nodes. We propose the methodology. Connected dominating sets are useful in the computation of routing for IoT and nodes in the network. In this application, a small connected dominating set is used as a backbone for communication, and nodes that are not in this set communicate by passing message through neighbors that are in the set. This is the connected dominating set. In this scenario, we have 10 nodes in the network. Like first it be choosing the maximum hop you can see the 10, that is a maximum hop connected in the network. So first it will be choosing like maximum hop and then move next to maximum hop. So once it is connected, you can see in the final figure where its bits are reduced to a small structure. Whenever this proximity data given to this hub, it will be distributing to entire network. This is the main objective of this connected dominating set. We are implementing the CDS of connected dominating set in this application placement. It has shown that the service delivery time has been minimized without CDS. And this is the output average service delivery time and cost of execution. We have been fetched from the observation of this project. By concluding the project, the sensing frequency and the size of data are important in the design network with computing intensity of application and also processing load of the host for computing nodes. As we have evaluated and predicted the limitation that the CDS has been implemented only at the fog computing nodes, we consider to work on the effect to propose method with by fog gateways as a further extension of this project. Thank you. Do you have any questions and answers?
Hello.
Hello, I have completed my presentation.
Yes, Mahale sir. Mahale sir, you are not audible actually again.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Perfect. Go ahead.
Okay, okay. Can you go to your result slide, please?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, can you explain what you would like to convey from this result slide? Hello.
I would like to. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I mean, can you hear me, Nirada?
Yeah.
While implementing this character domination set, it will reduce the network. So whenever the data approximated by the IoT device will not go through edge devices, and it will be concluded with just reduce the network side. That's a point we have given from this implementation set.
Okay, so when you talk about fog device and IoT devices, how exactly you differentiate between these devices?
Like fog devices, based on the data, sir. Like for IoT devices, only capable for doing that type of edge devices. Like if you consider an blood pressure machine, once it will be conveyed only it will be conveying the blood pressure from that sensors. But in the fog, it will be processing the data like it's like gateways, like routers. Whenever it will be overall the segment, it will be control the data. That's the differentiation between the fog and the edge devices. So.
Okay. Can you go to just few slides back to your presentation? Let me read one statement what you have mentioned. I didn't get the meaning of that. So can you go back till I say, yeah, please keep on going back. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, next slide. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So for each and every application request, amount of data required by fog computing node is calculated, right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
so
sir.
How you are doing this step?
If we are doing with this fog simulator, iFog simulator.
Which one?
iFog sim. It's an application.
iFog in. It's an open source simulator?
Yeah. iFog. It's a Java-based open source simulator.
Can you please text it?
iFog. SIM. iFog simulator.
Okay. Fine. Good. Thank you so much. Over to Aman sir. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Akash. Now we have Manish. His novel institutionalistic first time series modeling to forecast cases of COVID-19 in India. Manish, over to you. You can start. Hello,
Yeah, Manish.
Manish.
Yes, ma'am.
Now you can start your presentation.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Manish Pant from Department of Mathematics, Statistics and Computer Science, G. Pant University of Agriculture and Technology, Pantnagar. My title is Novel Intronistic Fuzzy Time Series Modeling to Forecast the Death Case of COVID-19 in India. These are the content we will discuss about one by one. First one, objectives, some basic definition of fuzzy set, intronistic fuzzy set, fuzzy time series, intronistic fuzzy time series, etc. Now we'll discuss about proposed method and references, result and discuss and the references. Many researchers propose various forecasting methods based on intrinsic fuzzy set. They used Jurio's intrinsic construction method, and in this method, certain limitation. Consider this fact: we used a novel construction method of intrinsic fuzzy set given by Singh et al. Hence, in this study, we proposed a novel intrinsic fuzzy time series forecasting method, and with different interval to evaluate the performance of proposed forecasting method for enhance the accuracy of proposed method to optimize the length of interval. For validation of proposed forecasting method, some statistical parameters are used. Some basic definition we will discuss about here. What is the CRISP? A collection of well-defined objects. It is defined either 0 and 1. It means we can represent an element X is involved in a set or not, but it doesn't always happen in real life problem due to the failure of classical set to represent the hidden uncertainty and vagueness in the system. Elizalde extend the classical set by fuzzy set in 1965. A fuzzy set is defined as two component. First one is X and second one is a membership function. Membership function in fuzzy set, the membership rate of an element is value between 0, 1. However, in human being problem, non-determinacy or hesitancy that arises due to can't-say condition. So concept of intrinsic fuzzy set was introduced by Patton-Shaw in 1986. An intrinsic fuzzy set is defined as we have three component, one is X and other two members, and two rest two are membership and non-membership function belong to intrinsic fuzzy set with the condition addition of and membership grade always lies between 0 is called of non-determinacy of element X to intrinsic fuzzy set A. Now, fuzzy time series was introduced by Song and Chosom. Using fuzzy set, according to him, suppose Xt be the universe of discourse and Xt be a subset of real number. Let all the fuzzy set is defined of universe of discourse Xt. Then fuzzy time series Ft is collection of all the fuzzy set defined on Xt. Intrinsic fuzzy time series was introduced by Kumar and Gangwar using intrinsic fuzzy set, and intrinsic fuzzy time series is a collection of intrinsic fuzzy set on Xt. If IGT is caused by only IGT minus 1, it is represented as IGT into IGT, and this relationship between them expressed by this relation IT equals to IT minus 1 or RGT minus 1 is maximum composition of the Cartesian product of intrinsic fuzzy set. Let A and B are two intrinsic fuzzy set on X and Y respectively. The Cartesian product between A and B are following: A cross B equal to X comma Y comma maximum value of mu A membership value of X in fuzzy set A, comma maximum value of Y in fuzzy set B, comma minimum non-membership value of XA in fuzzy set A, comma non-membership value of Y in B, such that X belongs to capital X and Y belongs to capital Y with the condition, with this condition. Now the construction of intrinsic fuzzy set from fuzzy set A equals to X comma mu X such that X belongs to X. Let F and G are two functions such that F maps to unit interval to Cartesian product of unit interval 0, 1 and G maps to unit interval to 0, 1. And then intrinsic fuzzy set A is equals to X comma F mu X such that X belongs to X. That means AI is equals to X comma mu F mu A X comma F mu A X such that X belongs to X, where F mu A X is equals to mu X and F mu X is equals to equal to G whole bracket 1 minus mu X, where G is defined to determine non-membership of intrinsic fuzzy set with condition G comma 0 equals to 0. Let's see the example. Let U be the universe of discourse and let A be a fuzzy set given by this. On defining non-membership function G maps the unit interval to unit interval such that Gx is equals to X upon A, where A is sum of all X in X, where X is membership value. Then intrinsic fuzzy set will be like this. Now the proposed method, the step involved in proposed method is explained as follows. First of all, we define universe of discourse such that all time series data are accommodated in universe of discourse. Number of define number of interval, number of interval length, and partition the domain of discourse into equal length interval. Define fuzzy set according to interval, and all the time data fuzzy set, and all the time series data are strictly fuzzified. Establish intrinsic fuzzy logic relation in F and F. Then the current state of time series data of IFLR. We can easily see it, for example,
Sorry to
I1
interrupt you, but you are not audible properly.
Comma I1 tends to I2 and I2 comma I be grouped by. Now step 5, okay sir. Hello.
You are not audible properly. Check your audio. Yes, Manish, you there?
Step
Yes.
5, to get into
Go ahead. Go ahead.
To get intrinsic fuzzy outcome using Maximian operator and defuzzification using by this formula, where M is number of interval and L is the upper bound of interval, and nu I is member value and non-membership value respectively for different statical parameter. Now we used a MATLAB function called fminbind, which is defined as one-dimensional minimizer that finds a minimum for a problem specified by minimum fx such that for all x belongs to open interval x1 comma x2, where x comma x1 comma x2 are finite scalar and fx is function that returns a scalar. We used this function and to optimize the length of interval of proposed intrinsic fuzzy time series forecasting model and enhance the accuracy of the proposed method. You are well aware the COVID-19 pandemic has tremendous effect on the life of people from around the world. We implementation the proposed method to forecast that case in India due to COVID-19. This table represents the actual and forecasted death case in India due to COVID-19. These are the result of proposed forecasting method with different interval, and for validation of proposed method with some statistical parameter. In this paper, we propose the novel intrinsic fuzzy time series forecasting method based on novel construction method of intrinsic fuzzy set by fuzzy set enhances the accuracy of proposed method to optimize the length of interval on promising result. Proposed method is also applicable for other forecasting problem like weather forecast, stock market forecast, enrollment forecast, etc. And these are the references. And thank you.
Hello.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, can you hear me? Aman sir, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Can you go to title slide, please?
Yes, sir.
Title slide, first slide. Yeah. So can you explain why you selected fuzzy approach here? Why not crisp? Because the dataset which we have is all crisp dataset for all the values of all the patient across entire time period, right? Then why you thought
Yes,
of selecting fuzzy approach?
Sir, this is the method we are use for statically. We are use all method, but we are use fuzzy time series forecast.
No. My
In
question is,
COVID-19.
what is the reason for selecting fuzzy approach? Simple. Right? When we select fuzzy approach, when we have data in terms of good, average, bad, like in the ranges. But for COVID dataset, we have all accurate dataset. Are you getting my point?
Sir, yes, sir. Because due to some uncertainty in dataset, then we use fuzzy approach.
There is no, see, when uncertainty is there, we don't go for fuzzy approach. When we go for fuzzy approach, when we have values in the ranges like 0 to 5, 5 to 6, 5 to 7, 7 to 10 for some parameters, right? Okay. Do you think that your forecasting is applicable to what is happening now in India? Not really, right?
Sir, yes, but this budget time series forecasting model parallel to data, not forecast to after the data. This data is depend on the previous data. That's why it's parallel to parallel data.
Yeah, but forecasting is always depend on the previous data only, right?
Yes,
So
sir.
I don't think your results are matching with the current scenario which is there in the Indian context, right?
Okay. Yes, sir.
Fine. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. ये क्वेश्चन के लिए मैंने आज फोन किया था.
Okay. Thank you, Manish. Now we have Rishabh for his paper about a deep dive into blockchain consensus protocols. Rishabh?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yeah. Yes, you can start.
Okay, just give me. Is my screen visible to everyone?
Yes.
So, hello everyone. My name is Rishabh, and I'll be presenting this paper, a deep dive into blockchain consensus protocols. So, it offers a good introduction to blockchain technology. So, we'll start with traditional systems, how they differ from blockchain, and why we use blockchain in the first place. So if we talk about traditional systems, they rely on a central entity. So let's say I want to send some money to other person, then I'll send my request to some bank, and then that bank will process it to other person. So
Rishabh, you're not audible.
Am I audible now?
Hello.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, so should I start from the beginning or carry on? Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, should I carry on or start from the beginning?
Start. Go ahead.
Okay, so in traditional systems, so let's say I want to send some money to other person, then I'll first have to send my request to the bank, and then that bank will process the request to that person. So this central authority, this central entity provides us with the functionality, which is the service and security and efficiency of the system. But at the same time, this raises some concerns about security and privacy. So let's say a hacker attacks this central entity and takes it down, then the whole system is down. And we already know that banks take a lot more information than required from us. So there's also concerns about privacy. And blockchain tries to eradicate these concerns. So public ledger is the building block of blockchain. So what is a public ledger? So let's first see what a ledger is. So ledger is nothing but a snapshot of all the transactions that have ever happened in the system. And when this ledger is publicly available, we generally call it public ledger. So in blockchain, this public ledger will be immutable, and we'll see how. So moving on, a blockchain is nothing but a peer-to-peer connected network. And it provides us with 5 features. And I'll start with transparency. So because this public ledger is available to each node in the system, so there's transparency of data in the whole system. And then there's persistence. So what do I mean by a persistent? Persistence is the persistent of data structure. So we call data structure persistent if it's see how, but if blockchain is able to somehow maintain this persistence, then we can say this persistence in the blockchain, and these two things combined with consensus protocols that we'll see ahead gives the trust to this whole system. So blockchain is consisting of untrustable entities, but they all trust the underlying blockchain technology, which uses these features like persistence, transparency, mathematical models of hashing, and consensus protocols. And these things contribute to the trustability of the whole network. So blockchain provides us decentralization of trust and maintains the integrity of systems through persistence and transparency, we have already seen. And it also optionally allow us to maintain the privacy. Like if you know about Bitcoin, then it is completely anonymous, so you cannot track who has sent what transaction, right? So how does a blockchain look like? So as the name suggests, it's a chain of blocks. So a block is nothing but a data structure. So it has 2 partitions. In one partition, we are storing transactions over here, and then this one is header. So header contains 3 informations mainly, and this will differ on implementation to implementation. But there's 2 things which do not change, and only those 2 things I'm going to talk about here. Is one is the hash of previous block, and we'll see how this hash is calculated. What are the information that goes on to calculate this hash, and then there's this timestamp. So there's also this difficulty of solving the problem that we'll see in the consensus protocols, but this is dependent on the implementation. And then we have this root of the tree. Like this is just a data structure which is used to efficiently maintain the transactions in the block over here. So Bitcoin uses Merkle trees to maintain that, and other blockchains can use other technologies, other data structures. So what we're right now concerned about is this hash of previous block. So you can see each block is referencing to the previous block using this hash of previous block. Okay. So what goes into calculating a previous block, a hash of previous block? So when I'm saying we want to calculate hash of a block, then what I'm trying to say is just calculating hash of the header. Okay, so header contains these three informations mainly. It may contain other information as well, depending on the implementation, but these are the main information. So, and once we have this header, then we feed this header to the SHA-256 algorithm, which will calculate the hash for us. And what we'll have is the hash of the block. And that is what is stored. Like if we have the hash of this block, then we can store it over here. And this chain will go on until the first block in the blockchain, which is known as Genesis block, and it is generally hard-coded in the source code of the blockchain technology. So let's say a malicious user wants to change this block. So what that user will have to do is first he'll change some transactions say over here. So the hash of this block will change. And then because hash of this block has changed, so we'll have to change the entry over here as well. And once we change the entry over here, then hash of this block will change and we'll have to change the entry over here. So this cascading effect will go on until the top of the block. So after some number of blocks, it is impractical to change or recalculate those hashes. It is infeasible. So that's how blockchain gives us this persistence in the data structure that it uses. Okay, so we have seen how a blockchain looks like. So let's see how new blocks are added into the blockchain. So there are consensus protocols to help us. They are just rules which help us to add new blocks into the blockchain. And some popular ones we are going to discuss here. So first one is proof of work. So in this protocol, all the miners compete to solve a cryptographically hard problem. And the first one to solve that problem is the one who gets to add the block and gets rewarded for it. Okay, but this cryptographically hard problem requires a lot of computation power to solve it. So we can say a node which has more computation power is more likely to form the next block. So formally we can say X% of total computation power ensures X% of probability to form the next block. And therefore, we can conclude that at least 51% of computation power is required for performing any malicious operations. So this is the first algorithm that was implemented in Bitcoin. Like it is still there in the Bitcoin, but the problem with this is it wastes a lot of computing power. So the next consensus protocol tries to overcome that issue of a lot of resource consumption. So in the proof of stake, there's no competition for solving any problem. So system randomly chooses a miner according to their stake in the system. And by stake, I mean the value of currency being held by that node in the system. So the idea is a node which has more stake in the system is less likely to be malicious. So we can say X% of total stake ensures X% of probability to form next block, because stake is what is used to pick the next miner. So if again, if we need at least 51% of stake in the system to actually perform any malicious activity in the system. So the problem with this proof of stake is actually the rich gets richer syndrome. So node which already has high stake in the system, in other sense, is already rich in the system, that node is more likely to form the next block and get rewarded. So it has this rich gets richer syndrome. So to overcome that, we have another protocol, which is proof of elapsed time. So again, in this protocol, there's no competition to solve the cryptographically hard problem. It uses a fair lottery system to choose the miner. So how this fair lottery system works is each node is actually required to identify themselves to the system, and then system assigns a random waiting time to each node. And the node which is the first to complete its waiting time is the one which gets to add the next block. But it uses it requires the trusted execution environment, and Intel's implementation of this is Intel SGX. So it requires hardware, specialized hardware. So this is one drawback of it. And it also compromises the privacy because it requires us to identify ourselves to the system, right? Yeah, so moving on to the next consensus protocol, we have proof of burn. So again, this also tries to solve the high computation requirement of proof of work. So how it does is through burning of coins. So by burning of coins, I mean there's a count in the system in which if I send some coins, then those coins are assumed to be burnt. Okay, and the more, so all the nodes are required to burn some coins to participate in the mining process. So X percentage of total burnt coins in the current process of forming the next block ensures X percentage of probability to form the next block. So in other words, we can say that it also has which gets richer syndrome. It also has this concept of periodic burning of coins. By periodic burning of coins, I mean the value of coins are diminished periodically. So it promotes frequent activity. So like mining process is still going on and nodes are competing to get the reward. Yeah,
Sorry to interrupt you, Rishabh.
Yeah.
You have last 2 minutes for your presentation.
Okay. Okay, so in proof of capacity, we are not using computation. Instead, we are using security. Instead, we are using disk space to provide security. So what happens in this protocol is we pre-compute many possible solutions to the cryptographical hard problem, and we store it in the disk. And then when the time comes to mine the next block, all we have to do is search through the disk space to find a fit for the current problem. And if we find it, then we are the one to mine the next block. Otherwise, this process goes on. So the problem with this protocol is it uses redundant disk space, and it is prone to viruses because viruses can easily affect hard disks. Okay, moving on to this proof of activity, it combines proof of work and proof of stake. So it works in 2 phases. In the first phase, miner is chosen through proof of work consensus protocol, and that miner will create an empty transaction, only the header, not filling any transactions in the block. And in the second phase, through proof of stake consensus protocol, will choose some validators, and those validators will fill in the transactions and sign the block. And when all the validators have signed the block, then only the block will be added in the chain. So this is a brief comparison of all the protocols that we have discussed till now. Like proof of work has highly scalable and secure, but still has 51% attack vulnerability and energy intensive. Proof of stake has high speed and lesser energy consumption, but again, it has rich gets richer syndrome and 51% attack issue. So what is 51% attack? That if we are able to find, if we are able to get 51% stake in the system, then the system can get compromised. And in the proof of elapsed time, energy consumption is low. It's highly securable because it's security is provided through hardware, but it relies on specialized hardware and privacy is compromised. And in proof of burn, we have regular activity, promotes regular activity and low consumption than proof of work, but it wastes some resources through burning of coins, and it's going to 51% attack. In proof of capacity, we have high energy efficiency, but redundant hardware, drive space, and prone to malicious software. So in proof of activity, we have very less chances of 51% attack, but again, because it uses both proof of work and proof of stake, so it has higher energy consumption, and because it's using proof of stake, so it also has the syndrome of rich gets richer. And then we have 3 more consensus protocols that I was not able to discuss due to time constraints, but we have compared them in the paper. And moving on to decentralized apps. So smart contracts are another functionality of blockchains. So what is a smart contract? These are just programs stored on the blockchain that run when predetermined conditions are met. Once a condition is met, the contract is executed immediately. And immutability and transparency of the blockchain make smart contracts secure and trustable. So these are just simple programs, but executed on a blockchain. So what do I mean by decentralized apps? So these are the apps which are the same as the current apps in the front end, But instead of communicating through a traditional database, they are communicating through some smart contract on the blockchain in the backend. So yes.
Rishabh, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Just go ahead with the closing remarks.
Yeah. Okay. So okay. So conclusion is that blockchain has a lot of potential to transform this, perform a lot of. Okay. So. Blockchain has a lot of potential to transform the various technology sectors, but it also comes at the cost of high computation power and low performance. So these are the references that I use in the paper. Thank you.
Yeah, Rishabh, can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah, can you see in the entire presentation, I have one question. What is your contribution in the entire paper?
So we studied a lot of protocols, and we provide a comparison, a brief comparison in our paper. So like
It's completely, so it is completely theoretical comparison of
yeah, yes, sir.
this protocol. Okay, okay, fine. So can you explain the difference between decentralized and distributed network?
So in distributed networks, decentralized networks come under distributed networks. So this, like distributed networks, like we can say, it's a broader, it covers a broader aspect, and the decentralized.
No. Just come to the correct one line answer with example maybe.
So decentralized systems gives us a decentralization of trust, and distributed systems are not required to give us decentralization trust. So that's the difference that I can think of.
Are you sure? Then my next question would be, blockchain is more appropriate for decentralized or distributed?
Decentralization.
So it is not appropriate for distributed networks?
It is being used in these distributed networks as well, but I guess distributed networks, like a file system can also be distributed network, network, but it need not provide decentralization of trust.
No. Okay, so you supported with some protocols which are more appropriate for blockchain, right? So you must have studied Ethereum and Hyperledger. So what would you like to recommend for some researcher who is beginner in this field?
So right now, what I am working with is Ethereum. So I'm working on an application of smart contracts using Ethereum as the backend.
Okay, so you would like to recommend Ethereum?
Yeah.
Okay, can you go to your title slide, please?
Title.
So it is like, consensus protocol, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so when you refer to the literature, which is a mostly widely used protocol in commercial applications today?
Are you talking about consensus protocol or the blockchain technology?
Yeah, which is widely used in commercial applications specifically.
So are you talking about the blockchain technology or consensus protocol?
Yeah.
So blockchain technology is Ethereum. Like Ethereum is being used commercially at many of the places.
Okay,
and
fine. Thank you. Over to Aman sir, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Rishabh. Now, next we have Aditya Veer for his paper about a priori algorithm with dynamic parameter selection and pruning of misleading rules. Aditya? Okay, yeah, you can start.
Yes, I will start with my presentation. Sure. So should I present?
Yes.
Yes, I will present. Yeah, so is my screen visible?
Yes, visible. Go ahead.
Yeah. So hello everyone. In today's conference, I am going to present my paper, A priori algorithm with dynamic parameter selection and pruning of misleading rules. The authors of the paper are myself, Aditya Veer, Mohit Gurov, Shreyansh Dange, Shubham Sangude, and Dr. Vaishali Mangekar. So I would like to start my presentation with an introduction. In introduction, I would going to explain two concepts, that is market basket analysis and a priori algorithm. Market basket analysis consists of two factors, that is frequent item sets and frequent sequential patterns. Frequent item sets are the item sets that satisfy minimum support threshold. That means if the support value of an item set is greater than equal to the minimum threshold value, then we consider that item set. And if the value support value of the item set is smaller than minimum support threshold, then we prune that item sets. The frequent sequential pattern are basically the frequency of occurrence of the pattern in the buying of the customers. Then the a priori algorithm. The a priori algorithm uses frequent items to generate association rules. It is designed to work on the database that contains transactions. Basically, it works on the transactional database. With the help of association rules, we determines how strongly or how weakly the objects are connected. There are three common ways to measure association rules. First is lift, then is first is support, then is confidence, and then the last one is lift. The interestingness measure. So support, lift, and confidence are basically the interestingness measure which we use to find the association rules. So support is basically measures the frequency of the item or item set in and transactional database. Confidence basically helps us to find how reliable the rule is, and the lift basically helps us for pruning or dealing with the misleading rules. The drawbacks of a priori algorithm. A priori algorithm requires multiple database scans. As many candidate set it creates, so multiple time it's reviews the transactional database, compares with it. So it requires multiple database scans. It is very costly as it wastes times to hold vast number of candidate set. As vast number of candidate sets are held by it, so it's very costly. The accuracy may be low as there is no criteria for deciding support or confidence. As you know, whenever we perform library in Python or in Python a priori algorithm, basically we have to manually type the values of minimum support and minimum confidence. But for different database, the value should be different. And in order to, as we are typing it, so there is no optimal value we are getting out of it as we are typing it. There is no dynamicity in creating the support and confidence value. And the last one is we are unable to decide whether to go for confidence or a lift. That is for a rule generated, whether the confidence is sufficient or whether we should go one step forward for finding a lift or not. So these are basically the drawbacks of a priori algorithm. Now the literature survey. Actually, we study various paper, and a few of the important papers I have listed here. The first paper was a study of improving a priori algorithm. It was published in second international workshop on intelligent system and applications. The work done in this paper was enhancement in the a priori algorithm by clustering transactions with equal number of items on one, and avoiding of inessential comparison against the database. The second paper was the research of improved a priori algorithm for mining association rules. It was published in the International Conference of Service System and Service Management. The work done in this paper was related to efficient scanning of data, reduce in calculation of data, analysis and retrieval, while the process of creating subsets and validating them in a database. The third paper was efficient association rule mining using improved a priori algorithm. This paper was published in International Journal of Scientific and Engineering Research, Volume 3. The work done in this paper was improvement in the classical algorithm by making a unique sorting and clustering method and skipping some transaction while calculating the support. The fourth paper is named as the market basket analysis using artificial neural network. It was published in International Conference for Convergence and Technology. Findings of this paper were improvement in the performance of a priori algorithm using neural networks and reduce in the regularity of the scan of the database. basically we studied many papers, but these were the few important papers which we worked upon and developed our own proposed algorithm. So we have proposed a technique for dynamic parameter selecting and pruning of ineffective rules based on contingency table, and we are able to decide whether we should go for lift or confidence. As I have mentioned earlier, the drawbacks of a priori algorithm, as there is no dynamicity in finding the values of minimum confidence and minimum support. So we have tackled it and we have come up with our own optimal method of finding the minimum support and minimum confidence dynamically in our algorithm, and also we are deciding whether for a rule we should go for a lift or a confidence. So these are the two drawbacks which we have tackled, uh, which have been tackled through our proposed algorithm. So now methodology of my algorithm. First of all, we are finding the support value of each item. Then the dynamic way for deciding the optimal minimum support value. Then the pruning of candidate set. Then the generation of rules. Then the finding confidence. Then finding the confidence value for each rule. Then then dynamic way of deciding the optimal minimum confidence value. Then pruning of rules. Then creating a contingency table and deciding whether we should go for lift or confidence. So these are the points on which our algorithm works, key aspects of algorithm which they works. So this is the system flow. First we are finding the support value of each item, then we are deciding the minimum support, then we are pruning the candidate set, then we are generating the rules, then the confidence value for each item is found, then we are deciding the optimal minimum confidence value, then we are pruning the rules, then we are creating a contingency table, and then we are deciding whether we should go for a lift or confidence. So this is the flow in which our algorithm works. Now I will explain each and every method in a detailed manner. For finding support value for each item, we are finding the count of transactions in our transactional database and finding the count of total number of transactions having X items. After finding this, we are using the formula which has been highlighted for counting the support value for each and every item. After finding the support value of each and every item, we are storing it into an array. After deciding, now deciding the way for optimal minimum support. As we have stored each and every value, support value in an array, we are basically finding median of all these values. We are basically going for median because median is better for measuring central tendency. Now, as we have the median of all the support values, we are considering that median as our optimal minimum support value. And in this way, we are dynamically selecting the support value. Now, pruning of candidate set. Now, as we have support values of each item and minimum support and our optimal minimum support value, which we have got dynamically, we are comparing both the values, the minimum support value and support value of each and every element. And if the support value of the element is smaller than that of our minimum support value, we are pruning that elements, and we are only considering the elements whose minimum support value is greater than, sorry, whose support value is greater than the minimum support value. Then the generation of rules. As you can see in diagram, let's imagine A, B, C are the items which we have got after pruning of our candidate set through the minimum support. We are basically matching the items, that is A with B, A with C, and B with C. And in this way, we are generating the rules. Then dynamic way of deciding the minimal confidence. First, what we are doing here for deciding the minimum confidence, we are starting with 0.1 to 1, and we are iterating from 0.1 to 1 with increments of 0.1. If the values in the loop in the iteration are considered as the minimum confidence value, and for each iteration, we are finding count of the rules. For example, if 0.1 is considered as minimum confidence, then for that value we are finding the count of rules. For each 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, we are finding the number of the rules generated, that is the count of rules. If the rules generated by the values are 0, then we are basically not considering that value. Then the values, for example, from the value 0.7 till 1, no rules are generated, then this value will not be considered. Then the values from 0.1 to 0.6 will be considered to find the median, and the value which we will get out of the median, we will consider this value as our final minimum confidence value and a optimal minimum confidence value. This is the code basically which we are doing the same. This is basically a loop running, iterating it from point one to 1 with increment on 0.1. We are generating the rules. We are finding the count of the rules, and in the you can see here the rules which are generated: egg, spaghetti, and the confidence. Spaghetti, eggs, this chocolate, spaghetti, and the confidence level. So we have tested it on a database. We plotted a graph. So this is the graph. For point 1, 34 rules were created. For confidence 0.2, 25 rules were created. For point 3, 8 rules were created. For 4, 3 rules were created. And after 4 till 1, 0 rules were created. So we will find values of median of values 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, and 0.4. We will find median of these through 4 values, and the value which we are getting, we will considering it as the minimum confidence value. Now pruning of the rules, as we have minimum confidence value and minimum and the confidence value of the rules, we will compare with each other, and if the confidence value of the rule is smaller than the minimum confidence value, we will prune the rules. Now creating of a contingency table. So this is the way in which we are creating our contingency table. Contingency table 1 stands for item 1, presence of item 1 in entire transaction database. 2 stands for presence of item 2 in entire transaction database. 1 means presence of both item 1 and item 2 in our transactional database. 10 means presence of item 1 and absence of item 2 in our transactional database. 01 means presence of item.
Aditya, sorry to interrupt, but 2 minutes left to finish your presentation.
So we are deciding whether to go for lift or confidence. So as we can see the 15, we have confidence and this. So we are basically finding the misleading rules here, and by finding the value, as you can see, it is smaller than 1. So we are saying that it is negatively correlated. So we are pruning it off. Now these were the rules initially generated, and after passing through it, these are the optimal rules we have generated. Now we are going for comparative analysis. We basically use ML extend a priori and a rules comparison with our proposed algorithm. So number of rules generated, you can see through the graph, is that the number of rules generated by our proposed algorithm is higher than ML extend and a priori, but smaller than a rules. Then execution time of ML our proposed algorithm is less than that of the rules, and but greater than ML extend a priori. The accuracy of rules generated by our proposed algorithm is higher than a rules and ML extend. What we did, we basically passed the same data set to all the libraries based and our proposed algorithm, and these were the total graphs of comparison we did. So in likely, I would like to conclude that we have proposed a dynamic parameter selecting method, and we are pruning the effective rules from the contingency table, and also we are able to decide whether we should go for lift or confidence. So these are the references which we used, and thank you. Any questions? Yes, sir. That's all which we did in our research work.
Aditya, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I'm able to hear you.
Okay, good work. I have one question. What are different existing pruning techniques available in the literature?
Yes, sir. So first of all, you can prune based on the minimum support value. Yeah, so you basically prune your candidate set based on minimum support value. Then you generate the rules. Then use confidence for pruning it.
That's fine.
Yes,
you know, amongst available different methods, you know,
Yes.
there is one of the good method which is available based on branch and bound technique. Do you know?
No, sir, I don't know about it.
It's
Branch and
basically a
bound.
dynamic programming approach, right?
Yes, sir. Okay,
So
sir.
don't you think that DP approach is one of the better approach to compare your proposed work with state of the art?
Yes, sir. It is a good, sir. Yes, sir. You are right about it.
One suggestion to you, because you know, when we do pruning based on some method, it is always better that you can compare it with DP dynamic programming approach.
Dynamic
right?
programming approach. Yes, sir.
Right.
Sir,
So this is
yes,
please.
sir. Yes, sir. Sir, basically what we did, we gone through this method. Our basically aim in this paper was to deal with, as you know, there is in a priori algorithm, we have to dynamically type the value of minimum support and minimum confidence. So our main objective of this paper was to tackle this, to come up with the dynamic method to create optimal values of
Right.
this. Sir, as you know, there are different database, and we could not decide optimal value for it if you are
Okay.
typing manually.
Don't you think that there is overhead of your proposed work on the complete ecosystem.
Sir, I'm not getting the question. So can you repeat it?
Some overhead, extra computational overhead of your pruning technique for dynamic selection.
Yes, sir. There is one thing because we have to, sir, as previous also a priori algorithm
Right.
redundantly goes for scanning of transactional database.
Correct.
So
Correct.
here also our algorithm is going for scanning of this. Sir, we are
Yeah.
working on it.
Yes,
So we
yes.
are
So
using
I think,
parallel
yeah, I
processing
think,
for
yeah,
it.
you should optimize it because there is a overhead, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, for now, we have focused, as I mentioned, 4 drawbacks. Now we have tackled 2 drawbacks. And now yet 2 drawbacks are tackled to it. And for the drawback which you told us, we are using the parallel processing for it. Whether,
Yes, yes.
yes, sir. Through which parallel processing the
Yeah.
time will be less required
So
for.
that is what, I was coming. Fine. Good, good, good.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes,
Over
sir.
to madam. Yeah.
Okay, our last presentation is from Vivek Raturi. Vivek, now you can
Madam,
start your presentation.
this is our last presentation.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine, fine, fine. Thank you.
Hello, Vivek.
Yes, ma'am.
Now you can start your presentation.
Yes, ma'am. I'm presenting. My screen is visible.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
First of all, good evening to all of you.
Make it full screen only, Vivek.
So I'm starting on the topic analysis of different algorithm of machine learning for loan approval. We are 3 authors, Ms. Bhavna Gildial, Shubham Garg, and myself. I'm from Department of Computer Science and Engineering in Meerut Institute of Engineering and Technology. It's located in Meerut. Organization of presentations are introduction, existing approach, problem in existing approach, proposed approach, result, conclusion, references. Machine learning is the upcoming technology to automate the maximum process for the ease of mankind. In a step towards automate the process of bank sector is one of the important part of our life. Loan approval is one of the main process in banking sector, which is very process. We are going to find the better algorithm for automate the process of loan sanitation. We have used different types of algorithm in this, like logistic regression, KNN, SVM, random forest, and Navy Bayes. I will give detailed introduction about the algorithms. So first, logistic regression. Logistic regression mainly used in predicting the quick results, like useful in forecasting true or false. Head tails. It is binary model, use 0 or 1 using the given set of individual variables. Next, KNN. KNN is commonly known as neighbor classifier. Nearest neighbor is denoted by K. In KNN classification, the output is class membership and object is classified by plurality vote of its neighbor, with the object being assigned to the class most common among its K nearest neighbors. K is a positive integer, typically small. If K is 1, then the object is simply assigned to the class of that single nearest neighbor. Now I talk about SVM. In this classifier, a n dimension space is used to plot each data item. Here n denotes the count of characteristics which individually characterized denoted in respective coordinates. A hyperplane is determined to distinguish the classes based on the characteristics. Next is Navy Bayes. Navy Bayes is a classification technique based on Bayes' theorem, which with an assumption of independence among predictors. In simple terms, a Navy Bayes classifiers assume that the presence of particular feature in a class is unrelated to
the presence of any other feature. Next is random forest classifier. Random forest scatters the data into numerous trees and subtrees and then merge them to obtain the result. It easily handles and on the large data collections. And there are many existing approach exploring machine learning algorithm for predicting the loan sanitationing process, predicting loan approval in banking system, machine learning approach for cooperative bank loan, accurate loan approval prediction based on machine learning approach. Problem in existing approach. The banking community encounters binary disputes, non-pair from candidates. And next is the dual nature of some staff at bank. Bank staffs do partialities with their family members like that. In the present situation, many bank accepts loan afterwards a clear-cut validation and confirmation process, but still we have no guarantee with whether the selected candidate is the worthy right candidate out of all candidates. The main percentage of the bank assets is right comes from the dividend received from the lands which are dispersed by the bank. The main aim in banking atmosphere is to fund their resources in right hands. Our proposed approach is first we evaluate the data and then we do comparison of different algorithms. Our working of this machine algorithm is this after fetching and clear the data, we have to prepare data to train algorithm for data set, and then we have to evaluate the model by finding F1 score through confusion matrix and the error to reduce them. After that, we have to deploy selected model for problem. Workflow is as follows. This first we fetch the data, clean, prepare, train model, then evaluate model, then deploy to production, then monitor and collect data and evaluate. This is the data set which we have collected. These are the characteristic of data set. For the machine learning, it is very important to select a good data and set for analysis for better concern. In our data set, there are some main variables used in data sets such as applicant income or credit history. For comparison between the different model, we use the F1 score. For calculating F1 score, we need precision score and recoil score. Confusion matrix is used for calculating both precision and recoil score. In confusion matrix, we have 4 values, namely true positive, true negative, false positive, and false negative. By using these parameters, we calculate the scores. Precision score is true positive upon true positive plus false positive, and recall score is equals to true positive upon true positive plus false negative. F1 score is a harmonic mean of precision score and recall score and calculated as 2 into precision score into recall score upon precision score plus recall score. It is a table of comparison. Here we calculated precision score of all the 5 algorithms we used and recall score of the algorithms. Then by formula of F1 score, we have calculated the F1 score for all the 5 algorithms. By calculating, we get the result that SVM has maximum F1 score as shown in the figure. And after exploring the algorithm, we come to an end that support vector machine gave the most precise F1 score of 89.41%. So we can conclude that support vector machine causes less error in comparison to other classifiers. These are some references which are very helpful for our project. Thank you.
Vivek, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, which data set you have referred for your entire work? What is the source?
Sir, we have collected data set from KG Nuggets.
Yes. So have you found some discrepancy in the data set? Did you apply some data cleaning technique?
Sir,
Have you applied
Sir.
some data cleaning technique? My question is, have you applied some data cleaning technique? Yes or no?
Yes, sir, we have applied.
Which technique you applied?
Sir, mainly work for implementation is done by Shubham Gar. So, sir.
Okay, okay, fine. Thank you. Over to madam.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So our session is over. So I sincerely thank our authors for their excellent presentation contribution in this session and all our participants for being a part of this international conference. I hope this session was informative and knowledgeable as well. All the presenters would be getting their digital certificates through email within 2 working days. Further, all the papers have already forwarded to the Springer. The publication will be live within 4 to 6 months. So kindly cooperate with the team of SmartCom 2021 and as and when intimated. I also thank our session chair, Dr. Parikshit, for chairing the session. A token of appreciation to the chair on the behalf of Team SmartCom 2021 and Global Knowledge Research Foundation. Thank you so much, sir, for your presence.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Congratulations to all authors and thank you Aman sir, thank you Neelam ma'am, thank you Amit sir, thank you all, and I wish you all to be safe and take care. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Wishing you same.
Thank you, sir. Once again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Amanji. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye,
Thank
sir.
you.
Take care.
Bye. Take care.
Bye, sir.
Bye.